everyone. I'm Rich Nation.
And I'm Mary Kay Grimaldi, and this is Shell Point Today for Monday, February 16th.
On today's show, we're going to hear from our favorite history professor, Adrian Kerr, about his upcoming class on the history of the Middle East, and another Academy class called Sit and Stitch.
But first, a reminder to all of you photographers that entries for the annual photo contest and show are being accepted starting today at the Island Service Desk.
Also tonight is the dinner outing to Stir Crazy in Estero. This Asian restaurant serves a diverse menu of Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese, and Japanese food. You can order from their menu or build your own stir-fry combination that will be cooked right before your eyes. Most entrees are priced between $12 and $25. Cost for transportation is $8. Island pickups start at 4:30 p.m. and the approximate return time will be 8 p.m.
And tomorrow night is the night for the Barbary Coast Dixieland Band, an annual favorite at Shell Point for years. The banjo, clarinet, and horns all crank up starting at 7:30 p.m. at the Village Church for an evening of musical fun. Dick Peterson has been leading this group for 45 years, and they are rated among the very finest Dixieland bands in the country. Tickets are $15 at either service desk, or you can call 343-2067. I hope you can still get in because they're going to be great.
Before the show, you can get a great meal at the Crystal Dining Room, and they are having a concert series special. The belly-busting menu will have great entrees available, sides galore, and a dessert buffet, all inclusive for $13.75 for Shell Point residents and $18.75 for visitors. So why not enjoy a great meal with your friends before the show?
Now, some say history can be pretty boring. I know I sat through quite a few lectures in college where the hardest part of the class was just staying awake. Well, that's not a problem with Professor Adrian Kerr. His thorough knowledge of history is surpassed only by his ability to make it come alive with fascinating connections and insights that keep his audiences on the edge of their seats. I say audience because with Adrian, it's not just education, it's entertainment. And you have yet another opportunity to enjoy Professor Kerr coming right up. This time, it's all about the Middle East.
Hi, everyone. I'm here with Professor Adrian Kerr. We're talking about a series on the Middle East every Tuesday in February. Adrian, it's always great to see you.
And it's always a pleasure to be invited. Thank you, Terry.
Well, the Middle East is something that you have led us through in a variety of ways over the years with your great historical background there. And now we're going to come to present times, which doesn't seem any less confusing than it ever did to any of us. So thank you for helping us start at the beginning and try to make sense of it one more time. And look at the end, your last session, about what's going on today in the Middle East. But right now, let's talk about how you're going to begin the Middle East. It says the Middle East history to present times. Why do you begin where you begin?
Many people just accept that the Mesopotamians around the Tigris and Euphrates rivers developed their cultures, ultimately leading to Babylon. Many people just accept that the Nile folk developed the Egyptian culture, and likewise the Indus civilization folk, and now what is Pakistan, just appeared. Of course, that isn't the case. Around about 2600 BC, all these civilizations did just wake up one day and start building. There is a prehistory before even that, and the first episode will be explaining where the peoples came from that set up these civilizations, what was common amongst them, what was unique amongst them, and how much interaction. And it's really interesting to know that around about 2800 BC, the people were traveling from Afghanistan to Egypt, bringing lapis lazuli, the blue stone. It's the only source of that blue stone in the Middle East at that time. So they were not even building pyramids at that time, but they were trading with the people in the Tigris and Euphrates. They were moving, there were camel trains and donkey trains back and forward between a very primitive Egypt into Afghanistan to get this blue lapis lazuli. So it shows you that even before great structures appeared in the Middle East, there was a trade network and communication, and of course later became the ability to write and put down thoughts, which we have some still surviving.
So we are going to start at the very beginning in that area. We're going to go through the various processes in the area that made the change, and how much of it, if any, has changed dramatically to now.
Many people look at the, let's say, Europe and the Middle East and say, my goodness, isn't it full of turmoil compared to the Native Americans who had a fairly steady, stable culture for the same period of time, 14,000 years. And many people have investigated what's so different about the Middle East, that you have these enormous changes of people, these great wars, famines, floods. It seems just to be everything that you can think of bad and good happens in the Middle East. And a book was recently published which looked at this and said that really out of our European American culture, our drive for new technology, advancement in agriculture, political concepts, democracy, etc., industrialization, those didn't just happen. They didn't happen in North America. It came from this interaction between peoples. You had the various folk in the Middle East being attacked by the Turks coming in from the east. You had the Arabs expanding into the Mediterranean. We had the Romans, the post-Romans, the Byzantine people, who all intermingled. And it was never a steady state. Even up to 1914, the First World War, the Ottoman Empire controlled most of the Middle East. But of course, they were hated by the local Arabs. And that's why they joined in with the Allies to try and kick the Arabs and the Germans out. And then, of course, after that, we look into the modern phase, which is the last 60 years, as to how do you then reassemble the post-Ottoman world in the Middle East. And of course, we haven't done very well in that area.
No. And has it been imposed upon them rather than coming from within, how they're going to reassemble?
Looking at modern times, yes, you can go back to First World War when the great allies carved up the Ottoman Empire, which has shrunk to Turkey, which it is today. And so Iraq, Jordan, and Syria, Lebanon basically had the opportunity to become independent states, but they weren't states in the way that we look at them today. They were owned by the Ottoman Empire. They had governors. So there was not let's take for Iraq, for instance. Iraq wasn't a state under the authority of the Ottomans for 200 years. It was just a province, an Arab group of people. And so suddenly, out in 1918 onwards, the West imposed boundaries, geographical boundaries, and said this area is going to be Iraq, and the capital is going to be Baghdad, and it's going to be some form of king is going to run that place. So you see a situation after the First World War where the West imposed artificial geographical boundaries on the places that we know today, which is Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and of course then Israel came into the mix, and Egypt as well. So all of these countries, which we now recognize as independent countries, weren't so under the Ottoman Empire. And so we've now superimposed on a group of Shia Sunni folk in Iraq saying, right, this is your country, and we'd like you to run it in a democratic fashion. And of course, the dictator takes over. We get rid of the dictator, and we hope that the democratic process will then bring a balanced, neutral leader. When that hasn't happened, he was biased in one side or the other. So the other side then react, and now you see, for instance, Iraq split in two, or in fact three, because the Kurds are like a piece of action too. And then we see the spread of the problems in Syria into northern Iraq, and so it goes on.
And we'll see by the time we go through session 4, the last Tuesday in February, that groups like ISIS see a niche that they can grow in.
And we'll talk about how ISIS went from a tiny little guerrilla movement in Syria to now hoping to control half of Syria and half of Iraq, and what the West are doing to try and help other people bring that to stability.
Well, it's fascinating, and we really appreciate how you're going to show us that, you know, history really makes a difference, the knowledge of history, the understanding.
I think people at the end of this will understand that how we got ourselves into this situation. And so it's mysterious to many people. Why is there so much turmoil in the Middle East? And I think particularly session 4, we'll see exactly what the key factors were that led to this very difficult, some people say insoluble issue in the Middle East. I have to give a positive ending by saying that Afghanistan could have gone the same way. And if you'd asked me 6 months ago, what would be the chances of a moderately peaceful Afghanistan after the new election of president, I would have not been as optimistic as I see today, where the president and the prime minister have peace has broken out between them. They're jointly ruling. The people, by and large, are following the democratic process. The Taliban, of course, are very active, but with United States air support, both the people and the government are determined to try and hang on to some form of democracy in Afghanistan, which is really quite encouraging when we look at what happened to Iraq, which is not quite the same.
It's encouraging and hopeful. Maybe to learn from Afghanistan and maybe fast forward a little bit in some of these other countries to what really did work. Yes. Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Adrian. I know you'll want to be there every Tuesday in February. If you have to miss one, I'm sorry, but try, because you will get the big picture of the history of the Middle East to present times with Professor Adrian Kerr.
So, entertaining professors notwithstanding, maybe history still isn't your thing. Maybe you'd rather just sit and stitch. Well, the Academy has you covered too. Check out this preview on the class that's just for you.
Hello everyone, I'm Terry Kolath, and I'm here today with Susan Ross. She's going to teach 2 programs in the Academy of Lifelong Learning, and today we're talking about sit and stitch. Thank you for joining me, Susan.
Thank you very much, Terry.
Now, you're from upstate New York, and lucky for us, you're on Sanibel for a couple months every winter.
Yes.
And we don't blame you.
No, this is heaven on earth.
It was so wonderful to meet you and think about, here we are in the seashell capital of the world.
Exactly.
Seashells everywhere, and we could be doing something with them that would be pleasurable and end up being beautiful.
Yes. My goal in first of all, when I first came to Sanibel Island, I was 28 years old. My first experience, the light, the color, the array of shells on the shoreline, all those things just delighted my eye. And I was working full-time. I managed physicians' practices. I didn't have the time to really devote to anything artistic. I wanted something that was tactile, something that I could carry with me, and a needle and thread and a piece of yarn, bits of color, and the shells themselves glued to fabric became the canvas that I used. I found out over time that some of the things that are the most delightful to use are pieces of fabric, could be from an old sweater, an Angora sweater, in my case, upstate New York, a felted sweater that I deliberately felted. I found that the textures and those things could be very easily applied to fabric with needle and thread. I bring to my classes a lot of materials that people can use. They may have seen them, but they never thought of using them the way I would use them. And there's a very simple technique that looks difficult, but is so simple to do.
That's the best. Well, the part I like about it, transportable, like you talked about, using some skills you may or may not already have with the needle and thread, because we're also going to have a learning component in this workshop where you can learn to make a few simple stitches. There's also the glue.
Yes.
You can sit and stitch, or you could use glue if you wanted to do some of these things. But you can use what you have.
Exactly.
You can use what our instructor Susan Ross is bringing to learn all of these techniques, and then you can go on. And we're even going to have another class after this.
Yes.
So let's just make it kind of clear here. When you talk about you have done a variety of things with what you already have and with stitches, you've just applied with simple stitches.
This was done very randomly to show a group of women in an embroiderer's guild who felt this was such a dynamic way of expressing themselves. They actually have encouraged me to take this to a national competition, my concept and my idea. But these are tiny bits of fabric that were just cut apart and tacked on. So there's a way that you can tack on pieces of existing fabric. You can also, this is a piece of upholstery fabric that I cut and then I frayed it. And you find by fraying it, it almost becomes like the little tendrils of things that are underwater.
Very much like under the sea.
This is the threads from a fabric that I completely pulled apart. I just pulled it apart and I said, look, it's like, and they're threads that are very similar to silk. And beads, and French knots are the only thing that I would suggest that we try to learn, because it works almost like Impressionist painting. You know, you can add dots of color and you can emphasize contrast, and you can make colors gel and form new colors just by applying them close in proximity to each other.
So the wonderful part is you'll learn a few techniques. You'll see things in a different way with Susan Ross's eye, and then you can take some of these techniques, of these techniques a little bit further. Now, this is absolutely stunning. You have some of the knots, some of the fabric, you've applied some seashells, you've found ways to stitch them down, you've glued some down.
Yes.
And then you can go forward using different kinds of fabrics, different colors, using the same things in many ways.
You can see that this is something, you can recognize what we call French knots here.
Yes.
But this is nothing but frayed fabric, the salvage from some of the fabrics that you might find in an upholstery.
And you can imagine being snorkeling above this.
These are created by fraying fabric and then rolling it to create what I consider something like a sea anemone.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is also nothing but frayed fabric that I rolled and stitched and applied on. I like to stitch on rather than glue on, and I'll tell you the reason is because glue is stiff and it can resist a needle. I glue the shells down, but the rest of it is much easier to apply, easier on the hands, easier on the fingers, more portable without the glue. Finally, I think one thing that I learned as time progressed, after I finished some of these things, I'd say, you know what, there's a little gap over here or a little gap over there. You find another shell on the beach, you look for something else, whether it be a piece of, even a piece of glass, sea glass, or a piece of a shell. It doesn't have to be a whole shell, just something to apply to the top to add some contrast and interest.
So we have a 2-hour workshop, and it's 2 Tuesdays.
Yes.
That gives us 4 hours to start with the basics, and then to move on and see some great applications.
Right.
Then to take this
Yes.
and perhaps a keepsake jar of shells with a pin-cushiony kind of top.
Yes.
How beautiful.
Yes, and see, the thing is that a lot of people they find the treasure, but they don't know what to do with it, or they don't have enough to make something like a frame or whatever. This idea could be applied to the top of a wood chip box, a cigar box, if somebody had an old cigar box that they wanted to apply to, any kind of thing that has a lid. You can easily pad it with fiberfill, and I have that. This is raffia.
Yeah.
This is a piece of a strand of yarn, and there is more frayed fabric in there too.
Well, we have people at Shell Point who have eyes like you and creative imaginations, and this is going to be so much fun.
I think it will.
It's going to be wonderful.
It'll be fun for me too, because as I expose this to people, people bring me other ideas. They demonstrate their own interest in what they're seeing on the shoreline and what they have available to them here. It's a wonderful place to live.
We're looking forward to it. You probably will want to sign up for this course with Susan Ross and see what you can do with stitching and seashells. It's called Sit and Stitch Workshop. Join us.
And now let's cover all of Monday's happenings, Academy news, menus, and Village Church connections right after this word from David Howenstein with a preview of his radio show on TV, Listening to the Words.
The theme of this week's edition of Listening to the Words could be some of the beauties that make life worth living. Shell Pointer Dan Warner writes about the things that feel good when they touch you. Then listen to stories about our pets, including the dog who catches her own bus ride, and another example of the wisdom of Pearl the cat. Also, stories about the beauty in everything, including you yourself. Then hear about the brain surgeon who walked 6 miles through a storm to get to his patient. Also, what a mother finds out about her autistic son and herself. An Englishman writes beautifully about the weather over there. Finally, a light-hearted climactic capper called Epiphany, written by Shell Pointer Sue Nelson. I'm David Howenstein, inviting you to enjoy it all every day this week at the top and bottom of each hour on Shell Point Channel 12.
Hello and welcome to the Happening segment of Shell Point TV. I'm Caitlin Van Scoy and I'm here with Bev Chanley, and we're going to tell you all the exciting activities we have for you today. We start the morning off with 8 a.m. men's match play doubles tennis at the Woodlands tennis courts. And at 8:45 we have virtual bowling in the Resident Activity Center. It's always a good time. Billiards at 9:15 will be in the Resident Activity Center. And 9:15 is also the time for pottery with instruction in the pottery studio. That's down in the Island Tunnel. The Lollygaggers paddlers will be heading out at 9:15, meet at the kayak storage. At 10 a.m. we have men's match play doubles tennis at the Woodlands tennis courts. And the Susie Q will be heading out today for Matanzas on the Bay. That's at 10 a.m. and sign up is required for that. At 10:30 we have Disciple Men's Study Group at the Woodlands, and that's in the game room. 10:45 is the time for table tennis, and it's a clinic in the Tarpon Room on the island. And we finish the morning off with an 11:30 Health Connections class, Agility and Flexibility in the Health Club, and that's currently full. Here's Bev for our afternoon activities.
Thank you, Caitlin. At 12 o'clock today we'll have Mahjong. That's played in the Sable Room of the Woodlands. Also, we have this afternoon advanced table tennis at 1:15. That's in the Tarpon Room. We have Samba, the card game in the Resident Activity Center at 1:15. And our last 1:15 activity is the Tone Chimes group. They'll be in the Osprey Room on the island. From 1:30 to 3:30, you'll find the Model Train Room open for tours. And at 1:45, we have a Health Connections class, Balance and Mobility Training Level 1. That's in the Health Club, and it's currently full. At 2 o'clock, we have Irving Berlin, A Daughter's Memoir. That'll be in the Grand Cypress Room of the Woodlands. 2 o'clock's the time for the Beady-Eyed Bead Club. They gather in the Oak Room down at the Woodlands. At 3 o'clock, we have a Health Connections class, Pilates Stretch. That's in the Health Club. And the Shell Point Singers rehearsal will be in the choir room at the church at 3:15. We'll move to 3:30, where we have a Health Connections class, Aqua Agility and Conditioning. That's held in the Life Quest Aquatic Center. Pickleball will be at the pickleball court at 4 o'clock. And at 4:30, we have a dinner outing. Time to go stir crazy. Off to stir crazy in the Coconut Point Mall. Court pickups begin on the island at 4:30. 4:40 for the Woodlands, 4:50 for Eagles Preserve and Estuary. There is a sign-up required for that trip. 6:30, we have Duplicate Bridge. That's in the game room of the Woodlands. And then we'll round out our evening with 7 o'clock square dancing down in the Health Club. That's currently full. We're glad you joined us today, and we'll be back again tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Terry Colette with your Academy information for President's Day. At 9 o'clock, the Art of Still Life Photography will take place in the photo studio on the island for those who have signed up. And at 10:15, we have iPhones, calendar, and maps apps. Starting in the Manatee Room on the island, sign up is required. At 10:30, Anatomy of Words continues in the Oak Room of the Woodlands, and they welcome anyone, any Monday. I'd like to tell you about our new classes coming tomorrow. The History of the Middle East to Present Time, Session 3 will begin in the Grand Cypress Room. Sign up was required. Our Sit and Stitch workshop with Susan Ross, and Talking is the New Typing with Bruce Findlay of Sundial. Dick Brown of Parkwood will bring us Math in Society.
Menus for Monday. In the Crystal Room, the Crystal Platter is beef lasagna with garlic breadsticks and Italian green beans. The dinner special is Old Home Cooking Night for $11.95, and the soup of the day is tomato. In the Island Cafe for lunch, the special is a turkey Cobb salad wrap with chips for $7.25. The dinner special is chopped sirloin with mashed potatoes and a layered salad for $8.25. And the Palm Grill is closed on Mondays. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
Welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm David Pavey. Some time ago, I visited a church in the Netherlands. Since my knowledge of that language is zero, an English-speaking missionary suggested I meet with Jacqueline, since we both spoke French. Bonjour, Jacqueline, I began. I'm intrigued. Tell me how is it that you, a French woman, came to live in the Netherlands. So Jacqueline told me her story. I was born and raised in Paris, she explained, with no born-again relatives on either side of the family. I grew into adulthood without once hearing the gospel. One day, however, I accepted a job at a hotel in London. There I met an elderly refugee from China. It turned out that he was a Christian, so he made it his duty to explain God's plan of salvation to me, and I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior and Lord. To make up for lost time, I decided to attend Bible school. While I could have done this in England, my French was still much better than my English, so friends directed me to the French-speaking Bible Institute in Brussels. Amazing, I responded. So from France, you move to England, where someone from China leads you to faith in Christ, and then you move to Belgium for Bible study. That's quite a story, Jacqueline. But this still doesn't explain how you came to the Netherlands. Oh, that's easy, she continued. At Bible school, I met a young evangelist from the Netherlands, and in due course we married and now serve God here in the city of Eindhoven in full-time pastoral ministry. Jesus said, "I will build my church." I'm glad I met Jacqueline because she reminds me that our Lord is still building his church, and that in the process he doesn't always limit himself to using foreign missionaries. He may use a national believer or even an elderly refugee from China. Of course, Christians are still called to pray that the Lord of the harvest would send out missionaries to the ends of the earth, which means from every country to every country, in my view. And God still calls on nationals to be his witnesses in their Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, that is, in their local area. In fact, we need a whole new generation of young international workers to replace those who are retiring. But ultimately, God is the one who is building his church, and he's getting the job done. Thanks for that reminder, Jacqueline. And thank you for tuning in to Village Church Connections.
We're glad you joined us for today's show. Tune in again tomorrow when we'll head over to the Island Salon to hear about Hollywood hair. Find Mark Bank will give us a word about unexpected life events, and we'll get the lowdown on the library book sale that's just around the corner.
Until then, this is Shell Point Today for Monday, February 16th. I'm Mary Kay Grimaldi.
And I'm Rich Nation. And from all of us here at Shell Point TV, we hope you have a great day, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow.